I hadn't seen Daniel in 6 years. Not since high school graduation. Not since the night we all promised to keep in touch, to visit on breaks, to not let everything fall apart the way it always does. And yet, there he was, standing outside my apartment building like no time had passed at all. He still had that same scruffy hair, the same faded hoodie I swear he wore every day senior year, and that same crooked smile like he knew something you didn't. But he looked different too. Older, sharper around the edges, like life had been a little less gentle with him than it had been with me. "Hey," he said, hands shoved in his jacket pockets. "You got a minute?" I stared at him, still holding the door open. "What are you doing here?" he shrugged. "I was in town. Figured I'd say hi." That was Daniel. Never asked if it was okay. Just showed up, like we were still 18 and nothing had changed. I let him in anyway. My apartment wasn't much. Just a small one-bedroom over a bodega, with creaky floors and a perpetually leaky faucet in the kitchen. But it was mine, and after years of couch hopping post-college, that meant something. Daniel looked around as I locked the door behind us, his gaze lingering on the stack of takeout containers on the counter, the half-dead plant in the window. "Place looks like you," he said. "Messy?" He grinned. "Comfortable." We stood there for a beat, the air weirdly heavy. Then I motioned toward the couch. "You want a drink or something?" "Water's good." I got us both glasses and sat across from him, not sure what to say. I hadn't heard from Daniel since he moved out west. No texts, no calls, not even the occasional Instagram like. Now he was here, in my living room. "Why now?" I asked. He looked down at his glass. "Got laid off. Decided to take a trip. Ended up here." I nodded slowly, watching him. "You could have called." "Yeah," he said, then looked up. "But then maybe I wouldn't have come." That hit a little harder than I expected. I took a sip of water, trying to keep my expression neutral. "So what have you been up to?" he asked, leaning back like we were just catching up after a weekend apart. I told him about the job, junior copywriter at some agency downtown. The usual stress, the barely there paycheck, the small wins that made it tolerable. He listened quietly, nodding here and there, not interrupting. When I finished, he asked, "Are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Some days, I guess. Other days, it feels like I'm just going through the motions." Daniel didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me like he was really seeing me. Not just the version of me from high school, but who I'd become since. "I missed you," he said finally, his voice low. I looked away. "You had a funny way of showing it." "I know," he said, and for once he didn't try to joke it off. "I screwed up." I nodded because he had. But I also hadn't stopped thinking about him. Not really. Not when certain songs came on. Or when I passed that diner we used to skip class to eat pancakes at. He had been my best friend. And, if I was being honest with myself, maybe more than that. I just never said it. "Why'd you really come here, Daniel?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes meeting mine. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you." Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Those words hit me like a punch to the chest. Soft, unexpected, and impossible to ignore. Daniel didn't say them dramatically. He didn't lean in like he was about to kiss me. He just said it and let the words sit there between us. I stared at him, unsure if I'd misheard. "You mean, recently?" He nodded. "Yeah, I mean, not just recently, but more lately." "Yeah." I laughed under my breath, not because it was funny, but because my heart was racing, and I didn't know what else to do with the energy. "You really know how to drop a bomb, huh?" He gave me a crooked smile. Still got the timing of a drunk magician. That made me smile, in spite of myself. That was always Daniel. Big feelings, no warning. He'd blurt out that he loved a song halfway through the first verse. He once confessed he thought he might be in love with our history teacher during a fire drill. But this didn't feel like one of his random, impulsive declarations. This felt real. I sat back, trying to breathe through the pressure building in my chest. I didn't think you ever thought about me. After graduation, it was like you disappeared. I did, he admitted. I needed space, and I was scared. You know how I was back then. I didn't even know what I was feeling, and I definitely didn't know how to talk about it. I looked at him. Really looked. The Daniel I knew had always been this blur of chaos and charisma, that the guy sitting across from me now, he looked tired. Like life had worn away some of the cockiness, and underneath it there was something raw and honest. I thought maybe I imagined it, I said quietly. He frowned. Imagined what? The way we used to, I don't know. B. How close we were. The stuff that went unsaid. Daniel didn't look away. You didn't imagine it. Silence again. Not uncomfortable, but thick. Charged. I remembered all of it suddenly. The late nights watching movies in my basement, blankets pulled up to our chins. The way he used to fall asleep on my shoulder and pretend it didn't mean anything. The nights we'd walk home from parties, buzzed and laughing, letting our fingers brush but never quite holding hands. I remembered one night in particular. Senior year. After prom, we were drunk. Alone. Sitting in the backseat of his car in the driveway. I'd leaned my head on his shoulder, and he didn't move away. He turned to me, eyes glassy, breath warm. If things were different, he'd said, I think I'd kiss you right now. I laughed it off. He did too. But I'd never forgotten it. You remember prom night? I asked. He blinked, startled. Yeah, I do. You said. I know what I said, he interrupted softly. I meant it. I was just too much of a coward to do anything. I swallowed hard. So why now? He took a breath, ran a hand through his hair. Because I'm done pretending I don't miss you. That I didn't mess up. That I don't want to figure out what this could have been if I hadn't run away. My mouth was dry. My pulse was going haywire. You sure this isn't just because you're going through something? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I mean, you got laid off. You're back in town. This feels a little convenient. He smiled again, but it was sad this time. You think I haven't had this conversation with myself like every day for the last month? I didn't know what to say, so I said the first thing that came to mind. You want to crash here tonight? He looked surprised. Are you sure? I nodded. Couch is yours, unless you'd rather stay in my room. His eyebrows lifted. Just to talk, I added quickly. Daniel grinned. Yeah, sure, he said. Just to talk. The thing about having someone from your past sleep in your bed is that everything familiar suddenly feels different. I handed Daniel a clean t-shirt, one of mine, slightly faded, soft from too many washes. He peeled off his hoodie without hesitation, and I caught myself staring just a beat too long. He'd filled out, not gym rat huge, but solid. Grown man solid. I turned away, pretending to fuss with the blanket. You still sleep on the left? He asked, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Yeah, he slid into bed like he belonged there. And maybe, on some level, he always had. We lay there in silence for a bit, not touching, just breathing. My room was dimly lit by the glow of the streetlight outside. I could hear the occasional passing car, the hum of the radiator, and his breathing, steady, a little slower than mine. Feels weird, he said. What does? Being here, with you, after everything. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. Yeah, it does. More silence. But not awkward. It wasn't just the distance, he said suddenly. Why we stopped talking? I waited. It was me. I didn't know how to deal with what I was feeling. I didn't even know how to name it. I turned on my side to face him. He was staring at the ceiling, eyes unfocused. You mean me? He finally looked at me. I think I liked you. I think I was scared I'd ruin everything if I admitted it. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I felt the same, but I didn't want to make it weird. Daniel gave a small, lopsided smile. We were already weird. That made me laugh, and just like that, the tension broke a little. "You were the only person who ever made me feel safe," he said softly. "Like I could be whoever I was with you, even if I didn't know who that was yet." The vulnerability in his voice gutted me. "You still can," I said. He reached out, slowly, like he was giving me a chance to pull away, and placed his hand over mine. I didn't move. His fingers were warm, calloused in the way of someone who still built things, touched real stuff for a living. We stayed like that, hand in hand, not talking. Minutes passed. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "I think I always wanted this." And this time, when our eyes met, neither of us looked away. He leaned in first. Just a few inches, just enough for me to meet him halfway. The kiss wasn't dramatic. No music swelled in the background. It wasn't clumsy or urgent. It was quiet. Careful, like we were both trying to say all the things we hadn't had the courage to before. His lips were soft, familiar, new. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I didn't come here expecting anything," he said. "I know, but I'm really glad I did." Me too. We didn't do anything else that night. We didn't need to. We just lay there, hands intertwined, breathing each other in. It wasn't about intimacy. Not yet. It was about finally being seen. I woke up first. The morning light had started to seep through the blinds, cutting the room into stripes of pale gold and soft shadow. I lay there for a second, not moving, trying to figure out if last night had actually happened, or if my brain had finally caved under years of unresolved feelings. But then I felt him. Daniel, still asleep beside me, one arm thrown lazily across my stomach, his hand resting just under my shirt like it belonged there. His breathing was slow and even, peaceful, like he hadn't slept this deeply in years. My instinct was to overthink it. What did this mean? Was it just a one-night emotional slip? Would he regret it? Would we both? But instead of spiraling, I looked at him. Really looked. His lips were slightly parted, his hair a mess, the t-shirt I'd given him twisted around his torso. He looked younger, softer, and impossibly familiar. I didn't want to move, didn't want to break the spell. But eventually, my stomach growled, and I shifted just enough to ease out from under his arm. Daniel stirred but didn't wake up. I let him sleep and made my way to the kitchen, starting coffee like muscle memory. The apartment was quiet, but not in a lonely way. It felt full, alive. I was halfway through scrambling eggs when I heard him shuffle into the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Mornin'," he mumbled. "Morning," I said, trying to sound casual. He scratched the back of his head. "You always this productive before coffee?" "Just for special guests." I smirked, sliding a mug toward him. "Black, right?" He looked almost surprised. "You still remember that?" "I remember everything." Daniel took the mug and leaned against the counter, eyes on me in a way that felt less like staring and more like he was trying to memorize something. "So, about last night," he said, voice low. I paused. Here it was. "You regretting it already?" I asked, trying to keep it light. He shook his head instantly. "No, not at all." I nodded, relieved but still tense. "Okay, I just don't want to screw this up again." I set the pan down and faced him. "Then don't." "It's not that easy," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. I don't have a job, I don't have a plan. I didn't come here expecting to feel this again, or realize how badly I missed you." There it was again, that honesty that made it hard to breathe. "I'm not asking for a 5-year plan," I said. "I'm just asking what you want. Right now, from me." He looked at me, eyes a little too shiny. "I want to stay, at least for a little while. I want to see where this goes." My chest ached in the best possible way. "Then stay." His shoulders dropped like he'd been holding his breath for years. We ate breakfast at the table, sitting closer than necessary. His leg brushed mine every now and then, and neither of us moved away. Afterward, he helped me wash the dishes, and when he dried his hands, he looked at me again. That same look from last night. The one that said everything without needing words. I didn't know what we were yet. We weren't boyfriends. We weren't just friends anymore either. But we were something. And maybe that was enough. For now. The next few days fell into a rhythm that felt dangerously easy. Daniel stayed. Not just in the apartment, but in the quiet spaces of my life I didn't even know were waiting for someone. He helped me grocery shop. He figured out how to fix the dripping faucet. He made playlists and talked to the cat I was unofficially fostering like it was his roommate. And every night, without really discussing it, he climbed into bed beside me. Sometimes we kissed. Sometimes we just talked, whispering about old memories or the weird things we'd both learned to survive. But we didn't cross a line. Not yet. Like we were both afraid that if we moved too fast, we'd shatter whatever fragile thing was growing between us. But of course, real life doesn't just pause because someone reappears in it. By Thursday, my boss was riding my ass about deliverables. I had deadlines stacking up, and I was behind. I worked late that night while Daniel cooked pasta, humming to himself in the kitchen like he'd always lived here. When I finally closed my laptop and stepped into the living room, he was sitting on the couch, a bowl of spaghetti balanced on one knee, watching some B-grade crime show with his head tilted. He looked up when he saw me. "Dinner's on the stove." "Thanks," I said, smiling despite how tired I was. "You didn't have to," he shrugged. Didn't mind. I grabbed a plate and joined him, the couch feeling too small in the best way. We ate in silence for a bit. Then he set his bowl down and said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah? Are you okay with this? Me being here?" The question caught me off guard. "I mean, yeah," I said cautiously. "Why wouldn't I be?" He shrugged, looking suddenly younger. "I don't know. I don't want to feel like I'm intruding. Or like I'm some old memory crashing on your couch while you try to build a real life." I put my bowl down and turned to face him fully. "You're not just some old memory, Daniel." His eyes flicked to mine. "Then what am I?" That question, so simple, so direct, hit me harder than it should have. "I don't know," I admitted. "We're figuring it out, aren't we?" He nodded slowly, but something in his face shifted. A flicker of doubt. "I just don't want to get too comfortable if this isn't going anywhere," he said, voice quiet. The words felt like a pin in the bubble we'd been floating in all week. I ran a hand through my hair. "I didn't plan for this. You showing up. Us. Whatever we're doing." "I didn't either," he said. "But I meant what I said the first night. I'm here because I wanted to see if there was still something between us." "There is," I said, before I could think twice. "I'm not denying that." He exhaled, long and slow. "I'm just scared," I added. "Not of you, just what this could become." "Why?" "Because what if it doesn't work? What if it's just nostalgia? What if we ruin what little we've rebuilt?" Daniel reached for my hand, held it, firm and steady. "Then we ruin it together," he said. "But at least we'll know." I looked at him, and suddenly all the fear in my chest started to make room for something else. Hope. Maybe this wasn't about figuring everything out right away. Maybe it was just about taking the next step. So I said, okay, and for now, that was enough. The weekend felt like an accidental vacation. We didn't do much. Slept late, walked around the neighborhood, cooked lazy breakfasts, and made terrible coffee. At night, we watched movies we'd both already seen, just to laugh at the same dumb lines again. It was like time had folded in on itself. Like we'd slipped into a version of life where it was just us, and the rest of the world didn't exist. But Monday came, as it always does. I had an early meeting, so I slipped out of bed quietly. Daniel mumbled something incoherent, face buried in my pillow. I kissed the top of his head before leaving, which I didn't even realize I was doing until I was already halfway out the door. By the time I got home, he was in the shower. I kicked off my shoes, dropped my bag, and noticed his phone buzzing on the coffee table. A number flashed across the screen. No name, just incoming call. Then it stopped. Then it started again. Same number. Curious, I picked it up, thinking maybe it was one of those spam calls that don't quit. Then the phone lit up again, but this time it displayed a name. Rachel. Work. The name didn't mean anything to me, but the word work did. Daniel hadn't mentioned a job. He'd said he got laid off. That's why he was here, why I had nowhere else to go. But seeing a contact labeled like that made something cold settle in my stomach. I didn't answer. I just stared at it until the call ended. When Daniel came out of the bathroom, towel slung low on his hips, steam trailing after him, I tried to act normal. "Hey," he said, toweling his hair. "You're back early." I nodded. "Yeah, meeting got cut short." He started digging through his bag for clothes. I hesitated, then said it. "You got a call. Rachel from work." His shoulders stiffened. "Oh," he said after a beat. "Right." I waited for him to say more. He didn't. "You told me you didn't have a job anymore," I said, careful not to let it sound like an accusation. "I don't. Not really." I raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" He sat down on the edge of the bed, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's complicated," he muttered. "Try me." Daniel sighed, looking suddenly very far away. "I didn't get laid off. I quit." Without notice. They weren't happy about it. "Rachel's my old manager. She keeps calling, probably trying to convince me to come back." I let that sit between us for a second. "Why didn't you just say that?" "Because it sounds worse," he said. "Because I didn't want you to think I was irresponsible. Or like I came here to hide." "Did you?" He looked up at me, eyes tired. I didn't know where else to go. I believed him, but the sting was still there. The feeling that maybe this thing we were building was sitting on a foundation with cracks already forming. "I'm not mad," I said quietly, "but I just wish you'd told me the truth." He nodded. "I get it. I'll be better." "I don't need you to be perfect," I said. "But I need you to be real." Daniel looked at me for a long moment. Then he stood up, stepped closer, and wrapped his arms around me. He didn't say anything, just held me there, like he knew exactly how close this moment came to breaking us. "I want this," he whispered into my shoulder. "Whatever this is, I want it to work." "Me too," I whispered back. But somewhere deep in my chest, a question had started to grow. What happens when real life catches up with us for real? The next few days were quieter. Daniel still slept in my bed, still made jokes, still kissed me before I left for work like it was second nature. But there was a weight in the air now, something neither of us could quite name, but both of us felt. I tried not to press him. I told myself he just needed time, that eventually he'd figure out his next step. But a part of me had started holding my breath again, like I was waiting for the moment he'd say thanks for everything and walk out the door. That moment came sooner than I expected. Friday night, I got home to find him sitting on the floor of the living room, suitcase open beside him, clothes half packed, his phone charging on the floor next to him. My stomach dropped. "You're leaving?" I asked, not hiding the hurt in my voice. He looked up, guilt already written across his face. "I got an offer, a remote gig. It's decent money. They want me to start next week." "That's good," I said slowly, the air suddenly thick in my lungs. "That's really good." "Yeah," he said, then softer. "But it's in LA." I sat down on the couch, not sure where to put my hands. "Are you going?" I asked. He didn't answer right away, just stared at the half-packed bag. "I don't know," he finally said. "Part of me wants to, the other part," he looked at me, "the other part doesn't want to leave this." I wanted to tell him not to go, that we could figure it out, that he didn't have to pick one or the other, but the truth was I didn't know what to say either. We had never defined what we were, never put labels on this thing that felt too new and too familiar all at once. "If you're leaving," I said carefully, "then I need to know something." He looked up again. Was this real? Or were we just playing house? Daniel blinked, caught off guard. It was real, he said. Every part of it. Then why does it feel like I'm the only one scared to lose it? He stood up, came over to where I was sitting, and knelt in front of me. I'm scared too, he said. I'm terrified. That I'll leave and regret it every day. That I'll stay and mess it up. That I'm not good enough for this. For you. I reached out, touched his face. His skin was warm, his eyes tired. You don't have to be perfect, I whispered. Just don't lie to me again. Don't run. He nodded, slowly. Okay. Okay? He exhaled. I'll go to LA for the job. Just for a little while. But I want this to keep going. I want to come back, if you'll have me. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled him into a hug, held him close, felt the way his arms wrapped around me like he never wanted to let go. When you're ready, I said into his shoulder, I'll be here. And for the first time, I believed he would come back. We spent that last night like we did the first, tangled in each other, quiet, hearts beating a little too fast. There was no promise of forever, no dramatic declarations. Just two people who had finally stopped running. When I walked him to the train the next day, he kissed me like he meant it. I'll text you when I land, he said. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Then he was gone. And weirdly, I didn't feel empty. Because for once, I knew he was coming back.